Hello heathens, this is the second installment of my Atheist Convention videos. Today I'll be talking about Saturday Day, the events that occurred during the day on Saturday. So was pretty tired from the night before, even though I got a reasonably early night, but I had been up since 4 in the morning. So was very reluctant to get out of bed, but I knew that sleep can wait and that there are amazing speakers to be seen. So got up, had a quick breakfast at the Hilton, bowl of Cocoa Pops if anyone's interested, and went to see the first speaker, who was Peter Singer. Now, I didn't know much about him beforehand. I knew that he was very much into animals and stuff, which isn't really my kind of thing. Not that I hate animals, but I'm more into humanism and humanity. So he was good, but I kind of got in about 10 minutes late, which I felt really bad for. So wasn't really quite sure what he was talking about. So yeah, I'm sure he was good, but my mind was still in a I've just woken up stage. Next up was one of my favourite people in the entire world, Dr. Leslie Cannold. I follow her work religiously. Read her blogs, read all her articles. I think she is an amazing woman and is definitely up there with some of the most inspirational people that I look up to. Her talk on religion in schools was amazing, using court cases from previous times in which people have fought against this, and the ridiculousness that state schools are having volunteer religious people come in and teach children. How is that allowed? You can't just have someone walk off the streets and start teaching maths. You have to actually have qualifications for that. But how come it's okay for a state school to invite in someone from a church? But guys, come on. If they're from a church, they're trustworthy, of course. How is that okay to have them come in and teach our children in state schools? And why are private schools still being funded by the government? Very, very interesting talk, one of my favourites. And she mentioned quite a few Facebook groups you can join and groups you can join to help stop the teaching of religion in state schools, and I will put them down in the description box.
So she went to the courts, and she went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with her. So what did the Supreme Court say? Well, actually, I'll tell you. What the Supreme Court said was, essentially, there's a separation of church and state in the US. But what was important about what the Supreme Court said was that it said, what you need to understand is that the court's decision here, that there is a separation between church and state, that religious classes should not be being taught in school, it should not be understood as the court being hostile to religion. So one of the biggest myths is that people who want to defend the secular state are hostile to religion.
Next up was Dan Barker. Now, I'd heard a little bit about him before. I knew who he was. I knew kind of his story of being very, very religious, a priest or minister or something like that, and then turning to atheism. But yeah, his speech was really good. The analogies he made and the comparisons between just the craziness of how a god wants you to worship him, but if you don't, you'll get sent down to the basement and stuff like that. It was very, very good. He was very entertaining and very funny. Definitely going to read his books now. There are so many books on my book list that I have to read now. I thought I was kind of all over this whole atheism thing, but apparently not. Apparently there are lots more books to read and I'm way, way behind, but I'm very much looking forward to catching up.
Atheists offer to the world. But the good news I used to preach as a Christian minister was basically this. Suppose I were to walk out in my and you're walking by, and I say, hey, I've got some good news for you. Some great news. Stop. You've been walking by all these days, and you've been ignoring me, and I deserve to be acknowledged. I deserve to be noticed. I'm somebody. I'm important, and you just keep walking by. You're not even paying any attention to me. So I've got some good news for you. You don't have to go down in my basement. That's right. This is great news, because you've been ignoring me all this time, and you've not been giving me the proper respect that I deserve. It made me so angry, and I'm an angry person when I don't get honored.
Here I am at Atheist Con just before I talk with Fiona Patton. There are heaps of people here, thousands and thousands. It has been awesome. I am in nerd heaven. I've had 5 people come up and say hello so far, saying they recognise me. So I feel like a bit of a celebrity in a really lame, nerdy way. It's time for the next speaker. Then there was a break, so my brother and I just went and scoffed some food. Toilet break, went back to the hotel room, grabbed a couple of things, came back for the religion and politics panel discussion, which included Fiona Patton, Colleen Hartland, Dick Gross, Marion Maddox, and the moderator being Derek Guile. Now, I only knew of Fiona Patton, as she is also one of my favourite people on this earth. I think if her and Leslie Cannold had a baby, I would kidnap that baby and love it forever and cherish it, and it would be the best baby ever born. However, this is impossible, and I'm going off track. But I loved Fiona Patton. The panel discussion was kind of weak. Didn't really, not that I was expecting it to, but it didn't really resolve anything. No one kind of got fired up. But my favourite quote from the whole panel discussion was from Fiona Patton saying, "I would much rather my kids be taught sex education in school than religious education." So I thought, yeehaw. She is the leader of the Australian Sex Party, which is my favourite political party because it stands for everything that I believe in and stand for. So after the political panel, it was Daniel Dennett. Now, I have to admit, I had never ever seen one of his talks before, nor read one of his books. I knew of him, I knew he was one of the 4 horsemen, but it's kind of embarrassing to admit that I had never ever seen him before. However, he turned out to be one of the best speeches of the entire convention. He was hilarious. He was like a hilarious atheist Santa Claus. And if you don't know what I mean by that, he's got a large white bushy beard, and he looks very jolly, and he wears socks and sandals too, so good fashion sense. He was brilliant. His talk was basically, you might be an atheist if, and then he gave all these reasons, basically so that if you're in doubt or if you're agnostic, which I think is just a cop-out, you are pretty much an atheist if you believe this, this, and this, or if you do this, this, and this.
Blindness denial. Now, these are people who have been just struck blind. They've had sight all their lives. They have recently been struck blind by some cerebral accident, and they don't realize it. They're blind and they do not know.
Now, as Daniel Dennett was doing his speech, my stomach started rumbling. I realised that I was very, very hungry. So I frantically tweeted out to the Atheist Con Twitter sphere, "Do they serve lunch here?" Because I was worried that I wouldn't have enough time to go and grab something and come back in time for the next speaker. But luckily the lovely Jack Scale and Reed tweeted back quickly, "Yes, they have lunch outside," so I was very excited about that. Yeah, that's how much I love food. So after lunch, that my brother and I very much enjoyed scoffing down, it was AC Grayling. Now, I do love his perfect hair. It is perfectly styled and coiffed into a magical style. However, I found myself quite bored in his speech. Now, I don't know whether this is just me, whether I was just tired, but I'm sure he was talking about something really interesting, but I just couldn't engage. He didn't seem as lively or enthusiastic as previous speakers, or as I said, it may have just been me. However, I'm only saying this because I'm comparing him to the next speaker, who was Lawrence Krauss, who was absolutely brilliant. Like, I don't know the first thing about physics, I will never claim to, and I don't think I ever will. I didn't understand his speech at all. I think I got the main gist of it. His speech was about something coming from nothing and the Big Bang Theory and all that kind of stuff, but his presentation was so upbeat and enthusiastic, but not in an annoying way where you want to punch someone in the throat for being too happy. He was amazing. I think he was one of my brother's favourites, because my brother's into all that sciencey stuff. I am too, but I'm more of a biology girl. But yeah, he was brilliant. I'm pretty sure I learnt something that will pop up later in my brain, but right now I couldn't tell you what he taught me, if that makes sense.
It's wonderful, the Galaxy song. So I have a difficult job today because a bunch of years ago I gave a talk. My friend Richard Dawkins asked me to give a talk, and about 1.4 million people have now seen it on YouTube. So I don't want to give that same talk here. I'd like to concentrate on some other aspects of the universe, but I'm the token kind of physicist here.
So after Lawrence Krauss, there was a small break in which I was quite tired, so I went back to my hotel room, which was just in the Hilton, so it was right next to the convention centre, and I thought, oh, I'll just put my head down for a little bit. Ended up napping for quite a long time, missed Jeffrey Robertson. I wasn't too worried because I had no idea who he was, and it wasn't really on my highest priority to see him. I'd rather be well rested for the next speakers and for the big night ahead. So the next speaker I saw was Ayaan Hirsi Ali. I hope I've pronounced that properly. She was phenomenal. Again, admittedly, I had never read any of her books or seen her on anything. I knew of her. I knew of her kind of general story, but I'd never seen her speak on YouTube or in person anywhere, and she was amazing. She was quiet but captivating. You hung on her every word. Her story was amazing, and probably the speech that stood out for me the most. Actually, the one phrase that stood out the most for me that she used when she was explaining the fact that a lot of free, white, liberal, and just empowered women these days are turning to the Muslim faith, where they have to cover their faces and be submissive to men. She called it romantic primitivism. Now, that is a very difficult word to say, so I congratulate her from saying it over and over. But it's basically the idea that by reverting back to a primitive culture or belief, you're somehow freeing yourself of the daily struggle of modern-day Western society life. But you could see the pain in her eyes when she was describing this, because it was almost like these white, liberal, free women were spitting in her face, because she had been brought up not knowing any better, not knowing that she could escape from this religion and that she wasn't a horrible woman and that she actually had some worth in this world, when there's women out there who are free and have all the opportunities in the world, who are choosing to enter this religion where they have to cover their bodies just in case they get raped. That is what the men tell them. Actually, one of the best things she said was, I'd been told all my life that if I didn't wear my burqa or cover my body that I'd be raped straight away, and as soon as I took it off I noticed that I didn't get raped. I mean, it's not a laughing subject, but it's just so ridiculous, the fact that this woman who so bravely came out of this religion and told her story and now has to be surrounded by bodyguards because people are threatening her life. She is telling us about these I think, stupid women who are going into this religion because they think it's the cool and non-Western thing to do now. It's the latest trend. Yeah, well, it's not going to be a very nice trend when you do something wrong and your testimony in court doesn't even stand up because you are a woman.
Is not only a shame on, I think, all civilized people and all atheist Americans, but particularly atheist people of Florida. I don't know if there are any atheists in Florida. But we know about it, and I think we should have it reopened.
So after Ayan, Hersey, Ali was the fabulous Richard Dawkins. Now, I was very excited because I had walked past him about 3 times because he was staying in the same hotel as me, and he smiled at me. That was the height of my nerdy fangirlness for that day, having Richard Dawkins smile at you. Didn't even say hello, didn't even get a picture, but the fact that he smiled at me, oh yeah. He was great, as usual. Just the way he speaks and articulates, and he had a really cool tie on too. It was like, I think he had bugs on it or something like that, so I was very impressed by his tie choices. The whole audience was captivated by him. He has that voice, that enthusiasm, that intellect, that accent. Yeah, he was wonderful, a great speaker to end the day with. So the speeches started at 8:30 in the morning, and Richard Dawkins finished at 5:45. So that was quite a long day of sitting there concentrating, but all definitely worth it, and I definitely learnt a lot.
Now praise intelligent design. Daddy, don't go down quote mine. I have to add the second line of my rhyming couplet for obvious reasons. If I'm going to praise intelligent design, I'm open to all kinds of misunderstanding, and believe me, it's happened before.
So stay tuned, people. Next instalment will be the Saturday night, where I went to the gala dinner, and then during and after the dinner met the most amazing Atheist Con people that I truly adore, and I will definitely stay in contact with forever, if that's not creepy. So yes, stay tuned and look out for the next Atheist Con video in the instalment about the Saturday night gala dinner. Thanks for listening.